this period of history that we're going through, the Exodus, there's so much that's going on. And, when you think about it, even though that we weren't there, it's by faith, we know these things happened. And we're going to pick up in Exodus chapter 8. And this is right after the frogs have invaded, if you will, and as it were, destroyed Egypt to a certain degree, and it got the attention of Pharaoh. And then in Exodus 8, verses 8 through 11, then Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron and said, "Entreat the Lord that he may take away the frogs from me and from my people, and I will let the people go, that they may do sacrifice to the Lord." So let me pause there. So it sounds like, whoa, I think he's had a change of heart. Wow, here he goes. He's agreeable. But in verse 9, and Moses said unto Pharaoh, "Glory over me. When shall I entreat for thee and for thy servants and for thy people to destroy the frogs from thee and thy houses, that they may remain in the river only?" And he said, "Tomorrow." So basically what Moses is saying to Pharaoh, I'm giving you the honor. You tell me when you want this to happen, when you want to the frogs to be taken away, as it were, that they're everywhere, and they're just it's a bad situation. When do you want these taken care of? And so he gives Pharaoh the honor, and Pharaoh says tomorrow. That's when he chooses. And he said, "Be it according to thy word, that thou mayest know that there is none like unto the Lord our God, and the frogs shall depart from thee, and from thy house, and from thy servants, and from thy people, and they shall remain in the river only." And if you remember, the Egyptians, at the start of this one, that was one of the things that they seemed to be able to do. They seemed to be able to bring the frogs as well. I mean, obviously not like God, but gave the appearance that they had some kind of, we have power in this too. But they couldn't take the frogs away. They couldn't make them leave. And so we're going to find out as we go along here, they're going to have to admit their limitations. And Moses and Aaron went from Pharaoh, and Moses cried unto the Lord because of the frogs which had been brought against Pharaoh. And the Lord did according to the word of Moses, and the frogs died out of the houses, out of the villages, out of the fields, and they gathered them together in heaps, and the land stank. When Pharaoh saw that there was respite, or relief, he saw there was relief, he hardened his heart and hearkened not unto them as the Lord had said. Do you find this reaction kind of strange? Here he is. He's kind of like, you can go. It's like he's softened up. But then when the frogs are gone, he seems to have a change of heart. Does that seem to be in character with him? Yes.
It seems to be the character with a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
As things start looking a little better, we start drifting away, and our
Mm-hmm.
hearts will get hardened again. And maybe we don't need the Lord as much as we thought.
When like you say, when the trouble's gone, hey, I'm going to be who I want to be. Now, when things are going bad, I may be, may look like I'm humbled, and I think that's exactly what Pharaoh did. He went through the motions, but his heart was not softened. In a case of intercession, God blesses for the sake of his own. In 1 Timothy, one of the things in 1 Timothy here that I like that's said, I like the whole thing, but something that I think is of something good that we should keep in mind. This is 1 Timothy chapter 2. And it starts out, "Therefore, I exhort first of all that supplications, prayers, intercessions, and giving of thanks be made for all men, for kings and all who are in authority, that we may lead quiet and peaceful lives in godliness and reverence. For this is a good and acceptable in the sight of God our Savior." Notice verse 4, "Who desires all men to be saved and to come to the knowledge of the truth." No exception, And the point of it is, it shows the proper kind of spirit that we should have. Vengeance belongs to God. We're not the avenger. What we do is we want mercy, we show mercy, and we remember, and we have the prayer meeting, and one of the things that gets brought up is how we pray for the leaders of the land, if you will, and so that kind of thing, and that's definitely in keeping with God's will, and we should be very prayerful. And here Moses does, as it were, intercedes, prays on behalf of. Many promises made to God in duress are soon forgotten by the ones who made them. God forbid that we should offer the sacrifice of a fool. And in Ecclesiastes, if you turn over there, one of the things, if you make a vow, you better keep it. So, Ecclesiastes 5. Do not be rash with your mouth, and let not your heart utter anything hastily before God. For God is in heaven, and you are on earth. Therefore, let your words be few. Let me drop down to verse 6. Do not let your mouth cause you to sin, nor say before the messenger of God that it was an error. Why should God be angry at your excuse and destroy the work of your hands? That the idea is, it's in verse 5, how we can. Verse 4. When you make a vow to God, do not delay to pay it. What we say to God matters, and so here's Pharaoh. They can go. Nope, they're not going to go. And so the thing is, it's a very serious thing. But God knew. He knew the heart of Pharaoh, and he knew this is how Pharaoh would react. Any thoughts on that or anything before I? And the Lord said unto Moses, say unto Aaron, stretch out thy rod and smite the dust of the land, that it may become lice throughout all the land of Egypt. And they did so, for Aaron stretched out his hand with his rod and smote the dust of the earth, and it became lice in men and in beasts. And all the dust of the land became lice throughout all the land of Egypt. And so some type of biting insect, referred to as lice, or it could be a type of mosquito or biting gnats or similar insect. Let me see. Oh, yeah. And I guess you call one singular a louse, but lice in plural. And one of the things about that I wanted to read in this particular one right here, we don't have any real detail about it per se, that before this one, the record tells of no warning to Pharaoh before this plague. He was warned before the water turned to blood and before the frogs arrived. But then he made a promise, or he said he would let them go, and they had let the people go if the frogs left, and he did not keep his word. So the lice came. Neither is anything said about the end of this plague. The Bible does not tell how long it lasted or how it came to an end. But again, what's the purpose of this plague? Show God's power, and to, as it were, to get their attention, or to get Pharaoh's attention for sure. And the thing is, it should have, but it again, and I'll go ahead and we'll look more into the gnats, or the third plague were not lice. Species of gnats so small could hardly be visible to the eye, but with a sting, which according to Pharaoh or Origin, causes a painful irritation of the skin. They even creep into the eyes and nose, and after the harvest they rise in great swarms from inundated rice fields. The plague was caused by the fact that Aaron smote the dust of the ground with his staff, and all the dust throughout the land of Egypt turned into gnats, which were upon man and beast. Just as the fertilizing water of Egypt had twice become a plague, so through the power of Jehovah, the soil so richly blessed becomes a plague to the king and to his people. And his people. And so the point is, where it's lice or whatever it was something that I have no doubt was not pleasant, and it caused issues, and it could have been very painful. Again, we don't know the details of it. It may have been very short-lived. Do not know. But the point of it is, this is in the plan of God. This is a step that's taken, and And we'd love to know, you'd like to know more about it, but we've given enough. And the magicians did so with their and the magicians did so with their enchantments to bring forth lice, but they could not. In essence, they tried to use their enchantments, but they could not bring forth the lice. So there were lice upon man and upon beast, and the magician said unto Pharaoh, "This is the finger of God." And Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he hearkened not unto them as the Lord had said. This was not going to be enough to persuade Pharaoh. Again, we don't know how long it lasted, and as was pointed out, by Alan that sometimes when things are bad, you act a certain way, but when it's over with, I'm on to, I'm going to do what I want to do. And so it seems like, God knew this one was not going to be the one that would cause the people to be let go. If we recognize these magicians as hucksters, we are given no reason as to why their attempt to replicate this miracle failed. The conclusion was the magicians surrendered. They had to admit before Pharaoh and before all the difference between their work and the real power of God. And in Acts 8, that's Simon the sorcerer. And it does point out, you had Simon the sorcerer, and he used those did so-called magic, I guess you could say. And he fooled people. But the thing was, it wasn't real. And that's 8 and excuse me. All right, there we go. Yeah. Verse 9, starting verse 9. Yeah, starting in verse 9. But there was a certain man called Simon who previously practiced sorcery in the city and astonished the people of Samaria, claiming that he was someone great. I have no doubt they did the same thing. We have power. To whom they all gave heed, from the least to the greatest, saying, "This man is the great power of God." And but obviously, when he sees the real power of God. Verse 13, then Simon himself believed, and when he was baptized, he continued with Philip and was amazed seeing the miracles and signs which were done. And so, there are people who can play the part, but Moses and Aaron, this was not magic or some illusion. This was actually the power of God, and these things are being done. Becomes clear that Pharaoh's problem was not an information problem, but a will problem, and that's so true of so many people that it comes down to our will. I can be really stubborn, and I want to do what I want to do, and you can try to explain to me certain things, but and I think that with Pharaoh, that's exactly it's truly a will problem, because there's enough evidence here to he should be convinced. Any thoughts or any comments? And so now we get to the plague of flies. And what's interesting about this plague, it's going to separate. This is the one that separates. And so the plague of flies, and some definite insect is evidently meant. And again, I guess they try to figure out which, like a dog fly in Psalm 78:45 is said to have eaten or devoured the Egyptians. Flies are a common pest in Egypt. Swarms are often brought up by the south wind, settling everywhere, filling the houses, irritating men and animals alike, and often carrying with them germs of contagious diseases. And so the various diseases right there that they can carry. And I wanted to read what they, in Bob's material here. This is the first plague that separated between the Egyptian and the Israelites. At first thought, one might marvel that God allowed his people to suffer the first 3 plagues. So when you think about that, let me pause right there. Why would God allow his own people to suffer the first 3 plagues? What do y'all think?
They needed to see God's power too.
Up close and personal? I think so. I think you're exactly right. The first plague did not threaten anyone's life or property except the fish in the Nile River. And I'll pause here to say, you did have to work to get water, though. You had to go dig. So it could be inconvenient, but if you want water bad enough, that's something you're going to do. Except the fish threatening anyone except the fish in the Nile River, so that they did not so it did not do lasting harm to either the Egyptians or the Israelites. God's people needed the lessons about God's strength. It had been many, many years since the days when God conversed with Abraham and these descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and have been living in the midst of Egyptian idolatry. And that's something to think about. The evil influences have been around, and we may not think about that, but do you think what you're exposed to can actually, I won't say rub off on you, but it can affect your thinking to some degree? What do y'all think? If you're around this, yes.
I'll tell you that seeing all the idolatry in Egypt for those 400 years, yeah, it had to have an effect on them. They actually had to come to some belief in what was going on with the magicians, and then they began to see God's power, and the magicians not able to counteract that.
Well, like you say, people have grown up, and if you looked at the Egyptian, if you step back and looked at their civilization, their empire, you would think these people are blessed. I mean, they're smart, all this going on. We're subject to them. They're telling us what to do. We're not telling them what to do, and they pretty much have complete control. And so, I mean, I hate to say it, but people tend to, while you may not believe that, but you may start thinking, where is God? Our God, the God that we trust. We've been here for some time now. So I'm just saying, people can get off track. They shouldn't, but they can. And so they've been living in the midst of Egyptian idolatry. God used the opportunity to teach his people some lessons by showing his ability to punish, and then continue to teach his might by showing he can punish the wicked and protect the righteous at the same time. And so the thing is, he's going to make a distinction. And that should, that's why I say when these people come out of Egyptian bondage, should they have not been the most prepared people to serve God? I mean, thinking of the hardship they had, all the things they've been through, and then this to be on clear display, you would I'm just saying, you would think. But I think God in his mercy is helping them. Now, at the time you're going through it, you're like, why is, wait a minute here. No, this is a good lesson you need to have. And so, sometimes when we go through tough times, we may not see the benefit at the time, but, it can make us stronger in certain ways, can cause us to look at life differently than what we may have previously. Just saying. So, it's one of those things. Here we see God allowed them to suffer to a certain degree, and I think y'all are exactly right. It was to let them know, and so. So we see, but on that day I will set apart the land of Goshen where my people dwell, so that no swarms of flies shall be there, that you may know that I am the Lord in the midst of the earth. Thus I will put a division between my people and your people. Tomorrow this sign shall happen. And the Lord did so. There came great swarms of flies into the house of Pharaoh and into his servants' houses throughout all the land of Egypt, and the land was ruined by the swarms of flies. And if you're like me, if a fly lands on something I'm about to eat, or I'm looking at something, okay, I don't know if I want that. I'm just saying, there's something about flies that, and in this particular case, when they're everywhere, I'm just saying, it'd be a very miserable existence. But the interesting thing, there's going to be a division, and you're like, are you serious? You mean flies are going to be over here, but they're not going to be? Really, you can do that? Yeah, God can do that. Any thoughts or anything on that?
I remember,
Yeah.
this is just what reminded me of this. Laurie and her family just got back from a big family reunion, and it was in Kentucky. And it was a beautiful place, but she said there were like cows and horses nearby. She said the flies were horrible, and it just about ruined the whole thing because there were so many and they were just horrible. And so that's just a small little, taste of what these people probably.
You mean, the potato salad after flies have been on, Sure, go ahead.
Sorry, said
They have little feet.
PTSD from it.
Yeah. Flies can be a very miserable thing. Impossible to see the plagues as mere coincidence. Signed to Egypt and Israel. God had called the place and the time. Excuse me. This is a punishment upon the enemies of the Israelites and God. And so he's, again, in this, he's doing these things that are not, when we get to one of the plagues, we're going to look at that where God points out to Pharaoh, and we'll see it down the road. God's going to point out to Pharaoh, in essence, if I unleash my power, he's going to give them a sense of how bad things could be. I'll just say that, and we'll get to that down the road. Then Pharaoh called Moses and Aaron and said, "Go sacrifice to your God within the land." But Moses said, "It would not be right to do so, for the offerings we shall sacrifice to the Lord our God are an abomination to the Egyptians. If we sacrifice things abominable to the Egyptians before their eyes, will they not stone us? We must go 3 days' journey into the wilderness and sacrifice to the Lord our God as he tells us." And then they wondered, so Pharaoh's offering a compromise, not full obedience, and he has not yet learned we are in no position to bargain with God. Isn't that what some people want to do with so many things? We look at religious things going on around us. People have their way. There's God's way, and people, compromise, as though they do not give God the honor and respect. It's like it says here, we're in no position to bargain with God. When he says this, then this is what it is. We don't go, well, I'll give you this. No, what God says. Abominable offerings, abomination of the Egyptians, animals which the Egyptians deemed it unlawful to sacrifice, and the sacrifice which would consequently shock them, as the cow which is sacred to Isis, the bull which according to was only sacrificed by them when it was clean, free from sacred marks of Apis, sheep of thieves, and the goats of Mendes. And I want to read what Bob had to say here. Various authorities have tried to guess what there were about the Israelite sacrifice that would have enraged the Egyptians. And he goes through several possibilities, but I wanted to read this right here. Whatever the objections that were that the Egyptians might raise, Moses was on the scene and knew the situation, and the authorities of today who try to guess what those objections might be were not there, even though they are making educated guesses based upon the records that have been found. Let it suffice to say that the correct way to offer these sacrifices to Jehovah would have angered the Egyptians, and it must be remembered God had commanded them to go 3 days' journey into the wilderness. This is the second time that Pharaoh offers a compromise or promise to let the people go, and the second time he breaks his word. So the point of it is, whatever it was, Moses knew that they might be stoned or whatever. The point of it is the Egyptians would not have gone along with this, and so that's what Moses says. Yes.
There's another point that's made here.
Mm-hmm.
God told them to go 3 days
Mm-hmm.
into the wilderness. That would have taken them out of Egypt.
Exactly. And there's really no compromise on that, is there? But you can go right there, just right here. No. So, 3 days. Exactly.
You go out there, camp out a couple of days,
Mm-hmm.
what you need to do, come right back to work.
And the thing that gets me, if you look at what they're asking for, how many days were they supposed to be gone? Just a very short time.
You go 3 days into
Yeah.
the desert, but then
Yeah.
there's the process of
Yeah.
sacrifice. I don't know how many days.
Yeah, but
3 and then 6 getting back, and then whatever time
right. So
required.
short, a relatively short time though. So, I mean, what it appears like it would have been a relatively short time. It's not like they didn't come and say, we're leaving forever. We're taking everything and we're leaving forever. That's not how he approached him. He approached him with the request from God, and it didn't seem like, he was not even willing to do that. Yes.
Well, I mean, the whole thing from the beginning should have been agreeable to Pharaoh to start with.
Yeah.
When you talk about 3 days into the desert, 3 days back, and then a short time for sacrifice, or then gone, a little over a week, 2 weeks tops. But he wasn't even going to do that.
Exactly.
Threat to him, and he was not going to have any part of that.
That on the surface, that's what it appeared. It was going to be a relatively short time, and really, when you think about it, I'm older, and to me, time, now everything's happening so fast. You got so much going on, but way back when I was young and growing up, it seemed like time moves slower. And so the point I'm making is that when you do something like that, nowadays, time is money and all this kind of stuff. But I would think back then, that was a very reasonable request, very reasonable. And God knew that he didn't put the ultimate out there. He put this request out there. And it was, I think, to show how unreasonable Pharaoh was. And like you point out, just, it'd been a relatively short time. It could have been a relatively short time based on the request. But it shows that he wasn't even willing to go that far. Any other thoughts on that or anything? So now we see the fifth plague, the disease of the animals of Egypt. Then the Lord said unto Moses, Go unto Pharaoh and tell him, Thus says the Lord God of the Hebrews, Let my people go, that they may serve me. If thou refuse to let them go, and wilt hold them still, behold, the hand of the Lord is upon thy cattle, which is in the field, upon the horses, upon the donkeys, and upon the camels, upon the oxen, and upon the sheep. And there shall be very grievous murrain, and like a plague, or disease. And the Lord shall sever between the cattle of Israel and the cattle of Egypt, and there shall nothing die of all that all that is of the children of Israel. And the Lord appointed a set time, saying, Tomorrow the Lord shall do this thing in the land. And the Lord did that thing on the morrow, and all the cattle of Egypt died. But of the cattle of the children of Israel died not one. So they didn't lose any, not even one. And Pharaoh sent, and behold, there was not one of the cattle of the Israelites dead. And the heart of Pharaoh was hardened, and he did not let the people go. And again, you think, well, this should get his attention. But Pharaoh, he's up, he doesn't tend cattle. And and while it may have caused issues and problems, this was not something that will, I'm not going to bother myself with that. Pharaoh, I'm not going to bother myself with that, But again, this shows, that this is affecting the whole land, and the attitude of the people are going to change. They're going to start realizing, whoa, wait a minute, we can't endure all this. And I'll read a little bit what Bob has to say here. There are descriptions of plagues or epidemics upon animals of Egypt in the writings of various travelers in recent times. The Bible does not say what kind of disease this was. The miraculous nature of it is shown by the extent of the timing and by the deliverance of the Israelite cattle from the plague. Until now, the plagues have been inconveniences, severe but still inconveniences. With this plague, the Egyptians suffer a dreadful loss, even though since they did not live primarily on the flesh of their animals, nothing vital has been touched. With each plague, Pharaoh has the option of stopping the chastisement of God, chastisement God is administering, but his stubborn heart refuses to submit, even though he has accepted the idea that Jehovah is causing these things. So there's no question, I would think, in his mind, this isn't just something just by chance or coincidence. This is actually the power of God. But what's interesting, it goes and then it goes away. And so I think you can see where somebody with a hardened heart, as we've mentioned, when it's past, okay, I don't have to worry about that. God didn't just keep doing the same things over and over again. And now we see the sixth plague on Egypt. And so this is going to get some attention here. And the Lord said unto Moses and to Aaron, take to you handfuls of ashes of the furnace, and let Moses sprinkle it toward the heaven in the sight of Pharaoh, and it shall become a small dust in all the land of Egypt, and shall be a boil breaking forth with blains or sores, I'll just say sores there, upon man and upon beasts throughout all the land of Egypt. And they took the ashes of the furnace and stood before Pharaoh, and Moses sprinkled it toward heaven, and it became a boil breaking forth with sores upon man and upon beast. And all the magicians could not stand before Moses because of the boils, for the boil was upon the magicians and upon all the Egyptians. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, and he hearkened not unto them, as the Lord had spoken to Moses. And so basically the magicians couldn't, they couldn't copy this because they were being affected by it themselves. And what's interesting, they couldn't undo it either, so and they've already had to admit they did not have the power. And so these plagues continue, and we're going to see this really powerful plague that's coming, the plague of hail. Then the Lord said to Moses, rise up early in the morning and present yourself before Pharaoh and say to him, thus says the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, let my people go that you may serve me. For this time I will send all my plagues on you and on your servants and your people, so that you may know there is none like me in all the earth. I think he's signifying that this plague is going to really get your attention. For by now I could have put out my hand and struck you and your people with pestilence, and you would have been cut off from the earth. But for this purpose I have raised you up to show you my power, so that my name may be proclaimed in all the earth. You are still exalting yourself against my people, and will not let them go. Behold, about this time tomorrow I will cause the very heavy hail to fall, such as never has been in Egypt from the day it was founded until now. And I'll go ahead and do this next point. I wanted to read what the New King James Version says, that verse 15. I like the way that because I don't think you get the true sense to some degree of what God's saying here. And verse 9, and I'll read starting verse 15. Now, if I had stretched out my hand and struck you and your people with pestilence, then you would have been cut off from the earth. But indeed, for this purpose I have raised you up, that I may show my power in you, and that my name may be declared in all the earth. God's letting Pharaoh know, if I had really exercised my power, as we say, I'd flex my muscle, you wouldn't be here. And you would think, somebody you would think Pharaoh would be somewhat of an intelligent man. What he's already seen and saying this is like, wow, that is so true. Any thoughts on that or anything like that? Oh, yes.
I think self-pride can be very expensive and intoxicating.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always a bad investment. It always returns a whole lot less than you invested. I think that's, I'm trying to think about what's Pharaoh thinking,
Mm-hmm.
and how is that different maybe from how I've thought about things too.
Exactly.
How maybe, I want to do things my way, and,
Well,
you've got to be humble. That's when you'll be blessed.
Well, let me ask you, I'll ask all of y'all this. You look at, like mentioned, look, the pride and the arrogance of Pharaoh. But aren't people today who will not follow God's word, are they not showing in essence that same that same kind of rebellion, that same kind of arrogance to a certain degree. I mean, we look at Pharaoh, we think he is just so unique. People, there's no way somebody would really act like that. Really? What do y'all think?
So it's about, that's why I think I want to use the word self-pride.
Yeah.
You know, it's selfishness. That's such a large part of everything that do wrong.
We can get it, you know, we could analyze Pharaoh and go, maybe it's like you say, self-pride, this, you know, just about self. It's also what he stands to lose if, you know, the people go. I mean, there's all kinds of different angles we can look at this. But the bottom line is, he is in rebellion to God. And I think we live in a world that's like that. That this, you know, we just see it amplified here. But really, you know, on any level, when you do not serve God, or you do not yield to His will, what does that say about the individual? Any? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it just, I guess the thing I want us to see is that there's so much we can learn from this. You know, we can make application to it, you know, and realize, and as you said, sometimes I can be that way. And that's true. We, you know, there are times that we can stumble, we can fall, we can let things kind of pull us in the wrong direction.
It's like you're saying, we look at this Pharaoh and think, how foolish can he be? And I guess we can be the same way. We're not careful.
We're heading that same direction. Yeah. So, like I say, I guess that was just something I wanted to, you know, to get from this, and just instead of putting Pharaoh in some kind of special, you know, I'd never be that guy. Well, really? Yes.
One other thing, and not being that guy. One thing that, you know, we tend to do is we tend to put things off, procrastinate. One thing I notice in at least maybe not all of the plagues, but many of them so far, as we're going to continue reading, God issues, I'm going to do this, and it's going to happen tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
They've been happening all along. They've happened each time. Pharaoh's seen that pattern, and it's almost as if he's waiting around to see, well, maybe it won't happen this time. Maybe, you know, maybe God forgot. Maybe he's not, not powerful anymore. He's out of tricks, whatever. But we see that hardness setting in time and time and time again. So, again, may I not be so foolish to think that wouldn't be me.
Well, one thing that hit my mind, and I don't know how true this is, and you might know this better than me. You know, the Egyptians were very religious, and they believed in you know, obviously false gods and stuff. It makes me wonder if he was telling people, go pray to, or go do whatever you do to counteract the, you know, the Hebrew God. It makes me wonder if he put any kind of stock in that. I mean, I don't know. We don't know. Don't need to know. But, you know, but I think people use that as well. They trust in things that have no value. Pharaoh did not realize that his continued existence works into the plan of God. God allows people like himself or Judas, Ahab, Jezebel to continue for a time for his own purposes, or his own purpose. Rather than be emboldened, he should have been very afraid, for the end always comes. And that's the very essence of, you know, when you realize that yeah, you can rebel, you can do what you want to, but consequences always, it may not come here, but ultimately they always do. And so hopefully that's a very scary thought to us. It's like, yeah, I'm not gonna, don't want to be like him. Even in the terrible plague of hail, God gave mercy. And so we get into that. Now, therefore, Now therefore get your livestock and all that you have in the field into safe shelter. For every man and beast that is in the field and is not brought home will die when the hail falls on them. And whoever feared the word of the Lord among the servants of Pharaoh hurried his slaves and his livestock into the houses. And whoever did not pay attention to the word of the Lord left his slaves and his livestock in the field. And certainly we know what's going to happen to them. Then the Lord said unto Moses, stretch out your hand toward heaven, so that there may be hail in all the land of Egypt, on man, on beast, on every plant of the field in the land of Egypt. Then Moses stretched out his staff toward heaven, and the Lord sent thunder, and hail and fire ran down to the earth, and the Lord rained hail upon the land of Egypt. And there was hail and fire flashing continually in the midst of the hail, very heavy hail, such as has never been in all the land of Egypt since it became a nation. The hail struck down everything that was in the field in all the land of Egypt, both man and beast. And the hail struck down every plant of the field and broke every tree of the field. Only in the land of Goshen, where the people of Israel were, there was no hail. And Pharaoh sent and called for Moses and Aaron and said unto them, I have sinned this time. The Lord is righteous, and I and my people are wicked. Entreat the Lord, for it is enough, that there be no more mighty thunderings and hail, and I will let you go, and ye shall stay no longer. And Moses said unto him, as soon as I am gone out of the city, I will spread abroad my hands unto the Lord, and the thunder shall cease, neither shall there be any more hail, that thou mayest know that the earth is the Lord's. But as for thee and thy servants, I know that ye will not yet fear the Lord God. So even Moses knows this. This is he's not going to get Pharaoh to soften up. Now the flax and the barley were ruined because the barley was in ear and the flax was in bud. The wheat and the grain were not ruined because they were late crops. Then Moses went out of the city from Pharaoh and spread out his hands to the Lord. The thunder and the hail stopped, and the rain no longer poured out on the land. When Pharaoh saw that the rain, hail, and thunder had stopped, he continued to sin. He, along with his officials, hardened his heart. Pharaoh's heart was stubborn, and he did not let the Israelites go, just as the Lord had said through Moses. We'll have to pause there. We'll pick up. I wanted to read what Bob had to say toward the end of that particular one. And I appreciate all your attention and your comments.